Welcome in, everybody. This is the Box Score Network. I am Ben Parker, and that is Simon Shortt. We really appreciate all of you being with us tonight. We are basically, for us, halfway through draft season, okay? Because we start, way back in the summer, we roll all the way through the fall. But I realize a lot of you have been very busy with your team or the NFL schedule in general. So maybe you're just not getting here. Others of you drop in because you do the work too, and you're just looking to get a third opinion basically here. So whatever reason you're here for, whether you're scouting for your team or you're doing your own work and just getting some other opinions on guys, we are glad to have everybody on board. Tonight, we are doing Simon's big board. We did mine a couple of weeks ago. Tonight, we are exclusively focused on Simon's big board and who he's got in his 32, which is, of course, fluid. It will change. Simon, how are you doing tonight, and how excited are you be to finally trot out your first big board this year?
Ben, I feel terrified to try out my first 32 because I'm not happy with the back five or six names, I would say, on it. Does not feel great. The news about Dante Moore um, leaving the draft, going back to Oregon, also puts a small dent in what's going on in here. Just having to squeeze one more guy into the top 32, having to put some guys into the top 10 or top 20 I didn't want to. I don't love that, but I'm excited to talk ball with you. I'm excited to talk draft with you as always. Um, and yeah, for the record, we're recording this. It's Wednesday the 15th. This will come out kind of the probably the Tuesday after, so maybe about a week after that. So any major changes, keep that in mind. This is coming out right after the Dante Moore news broke, essentially, but be a little delay in the release. But super excited to be here, man. Super excited to talk about this with you.
We're going to talk quarterbacks here in just a second, but let me ask you real quick your impression of this year's early impression of this year's first round big board. Anything you found unique, interesting, or difficult as you put that together?
You really do have to, and I think this is a cliche at this point for this part of the draft cycle this year, but you have to throw out positional value almost. And that's hard for me because I don't always push guys down because of positional value, but I certainly push guys up because of it. But there's not a ton of elite quarterback, edge rusher, offensive tackles that you can really lean on. So while, it's me, I'm going to push down running backs, but I'm going to prop up guards. So I do a little give and take for some of those positions that are usually undervalued. Um, I certainly prop up the positions of high value, and not having as many of those this year is certainly interesting. So makes things look a little bit wonky on my end, but hopefully I'll be able to explain that a little bit here tonight. And like you said, it's a 1.0, so this is raw. There's names that I haven't gotten to yet that I'm gonna fall in love with. That are going to be much higher than maybe they'll be on this first page at some point for me by the time we do my 2.0. So um, early in the process, a little strange, but certainly fun for sure.
All right, let's talk quarterbacks right off the bat, which of course is the highest positional value. I don't want to focus on Mendoza tonight because we've got the entire offseason. It seems fairly reasonable he's going to be the number one.
Hmm.
Dante Moore, who looked like the clear number two, is now
Hmm.
heading back to Oregon to play. So that leaves us with your third quarterback, who I believe is sitting at number 22. So I wanted to hit those quarterbacks first. How comfortable are you that a quarterback, and Simpson in particular, will actually go in the first round, a second guy here?
I'm pretty confident, based on the number of teams that need quarterbacks, the number of those teams that need quarterbacks that also have a second pick in this first round. The Jets and Browns were teams that acquired additional first round picks thinking they would be trading up for one of the top quarterbacks, but maybe that now becomes a we take the quarterback with that second pick. Maybe they get a they get a Ty Simpson at 16 if you're the Jets, or maybe you're the Browns and you take 27 and you're second or you're third and you get to 12 or 13 with the Rams kind of thing. But I'm pretty confident Ty Simpson is going to be a first rounder just based on being the second quarterback in this draft.
All right, let's move on from quarterback here, and there's some other tasty things here. All right, I want to stick with basically. Well, I'll let you decide here. The top five, six, eight guys. Where's your breakout there? Where you're like, these are the guys that I and all teams should be coveting. These are the This is the elite cluster, if you will. Where did you break that off at?
For me, I think it's the top five.
Okay.
You could go four, you could go three, you could even go two, but I think overall the way I'm feeling right now in this 1.0 is you do the film work, you do the background work, the amount of background work that we do, and then for me, I'm kind of trying to do more vibes this year, and just these five, I feel like are the five guys that stand out from a film perspective, production perspective, but also just you feel them when you're watching them on tape. You feel the efficiency and like the assassin-like nature of what Fernando Mendoza is doing for Indiana. You feel Spencer Fano playing through the whistle. You feel every Arvell Reese and Caleb Downs blown up run playing. You feel every Carnell Tate 50-50 ball and block and catch over the middle, catch and run. You feel all of that. And then you get to six and Ruben Bain, and it was fitting that six was actually where Dante Moore was for me because he was the top, he was the quarterback, very talented, but at the top of the tier of there's some questions and there's just some I feel like I'm wanting more when I get to the end of the film, right? And some of those things are more tangible than others. Like Maui Goa is going to be, we're going to have the arm length conversation, the entire draft process with him. Is he a tackle? Is he a guard? Jordan Tyson, little, slightly more of a finesse player and a bunch of injuries over his career. So like, how do we feel about that? Um, Ruben Bain, arm length thing again, like not a ton of sack production. So that's where we have that break of the like production questions and just that when I'm watching the tape, I feel those top five guys. And then after that, six through like really six through eight, like I know those are the most talented guys next up, but I don't feel them the same way I feel those top five.
All right, fair enough. And I apologize. I should have told you, but I assume the audience by now is
I
looking
got
at
it
the
up.
first half
I got it up. Yeah.
of your big board. So you're way ahead of me. Top 16 there. Let's focus on that top 16, but let's hit offensive linemen because you and I both
hmm
love them.
hmm
But every draft is different. So I see Spencer Fano at three.
Yep.
I see Malagoa at seven. I see
hmm
Ione at nine. I
hmm
see Lamu at 16. So it's a handful of guys, but they're spread out, right?
Yep.
Which guy there do you think that you would most love to either change the narrative on or adds a little bit of information to now that you've studied some of these guys?
What a good question. I mean, probably Mauigoa. Like he is. Because I would love to just get this out now, be done with it, and not have the arm length conversation for the next 4 months because it's exhausting to do it every single time. Um, Now, of course, this is on the tails of Will Campbell kind of getting his teeth caved in against the Chargers defensive ends in the playoff game. So, like, someone's going to say something about that. Um, but at the end of the day, when you have this profile of a super smart, super physical, athletic enough offensive lineman, you take him and you don't worry about it. You get him, and because the guys in his camp are going to say this for the next 4 months. You try him at tackle, and if it doesn't work out, you got a really good guard. And like that should just we should just be done at that point. Like, can we just say that this week and be done with the conversation and just take Maui go in the top 10 and stop talking about if he's going to play tackle or guard? Like that's going to be the line, and that's what's going to happen. Someone's going to draft him. They're going to try him at right tackle. And if that doesn't work after a year or two, they'll try him at right guard, or they'll just put him in camp, be like, wow, he should just be a guard, and they'll put him there right away, and it'll be done. It'll be Tyler Smith of the Cowboys. He'll just play guard and be really good right away, and that's the world we'll live in. So Mauigoa has from the first time I watched him back in October, I remember talking to you about it again on the show and just being like, I just felt like his film study was insane because it just felt like every time a faster edge rusher was going to make a move, he just knew what the move was going to be and he just put his hands up and stopped him. And sometimes it's as simple as that. It's not as easy as that, but it's as simple as that. And I feel like he was just so well prepared. He's so strong. Great balance, hands and feet. He's got all the tools to be a really good offensive lineman. We'll see what position he ends up being. I don't really care what position it is. I'm taking this guy in the top 10.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've heard all kinds of different things about Malagoa. Some people love him. Some people really aren't that high on him. But I'm with you. I like what I see. So let's draft him and then let's figure out where we want to put him because I just really like this guy.
Yeah.
Wide receiver, you have four in the upper half of your big board. Three of them are names that everybody knows and
Yep.
everybody's talking about, and everybody's gotten their, somewhere in the top 20 ish, right?
Hmm.
One name is not. That name is Jacoby Lane out of SoCal. You have him at 13,
Yeah,
I
baby.
think. I was already high on him months ago, and I thought I was the only one, but I thought I was being aggressive by planting him at like 30, 32. You got him way higher.
Mm.
So obviously, you and I love this guy. The rest of Mock Draft Nation has not caught up to that. So we'll see if the NFL people have any say in that as we get closer. But talk to me a little bit about Jacoby Lane.
Love Jacoby Lane. We both gushed about him as our draft crush. Early in the process, I guess that would have been November. We did that show, and I was I this is my Alec Iomanor from last year, right? Iomanor, I had like a first round grade on, loved Iomanor. He was a guy that early in the process was a little higher in mock second round, then he falls to the fifth round. Still never really found out a reason why, other than the one thing you could say about his tape was there were drops all over the place, and he certainly dropped the ball a lot last year, so that's kind of important. Jacoby Lane, though, profiles to me when I watched him, I immediately thought of Jaden Higgins from last year, who you and I also both loved. Just like a classic X receiver, big body. Um, Kind of like in a Romeo Dobbs thing where it's not like a bunch of acrobatic catches. He's not like Julio Jones 6'4" and super fast, but he's a big body that can run routes, that can block, that has good hands, and is more athletic than you feel like he is on tape because he's moving a 6'3", 215-pound body instead of a 6 foot, 205-pound body or whatever it is. Um, I just really like his play style, and I think it's a super important part of an offense to be able to build when you can have that guy on the backside. Think about how easy things got for the Packers when Dobbs came in, just because he's not the best receiver in the league, but he just fills
Right.
that mold. And for the Texans and Higgins, it's been kind of a slow buildup for him over the year. But even in that Steeler game, in the playoffs, Nico Collins goes out with the concussion, and Higgins essentially, Christian Kirk made has the big plays and the explosive plays and the big yardage. But Higgins is running those tough routes, and he's playing against Joey Porter Jr., and he's making tough catches. And you just need that guy to balance out the offense and keep defenses honest a little bit. So I really like Jacoby Lane. I think he's the most solid all around guy after those top three. And then the rest of the way at the wide receivers, I feel like you can kind of pick at certain things. So it's just going to depend on everyone's flavor. But he's also the second best blocking wide receiver I've watched so far, and I'm going to give style points for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You got to, and it's a realistic thing in today's NFL. So, um, 14 and 15, David Bailey, Keldrick Falk. I personally feel like those are vastly different style of
Yes.
players,
Hmm.
and I think you agree with that. Safe to say, both players bring some risk and a high ceiling.
Yep.
So it really is going to depend on the team fit, what you really need with those two guys.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could do the Keldrick Falk thing where it's a little like the guys from last year, right? The who into the bank, Shamar Stewart or Michael Williams, where it's like
Right,
big body is going to test well athletically, not a lot of sack production, not a lot of pass rush moves on tape, but is athletic and big, so there's room to grow into a really good pass rusher. That's Keldrick Falk. Or David Bailey, which is the man, he's undersized, but he is so fast. And a little like James Pierce. Now, I think Bailey plays with a little more stout and gumption than Pierce did, but hey, Pierce had a great
right,
rookie year. What, eight and
right.
a half, nine, 10 sacks, whatever it ended up being. But I also just think for such an important position, there's a clear break, I think, between the talent level of these guys and then that next group of edge rushers I will talk about in like the second half and some guys that are just outside of my top 32. I think these guys stand alone as like can be high end number two edge rushers on a good team. Like I see that ceiling for them. And then everybody after that's just like probably a nice rotational player that is like kind of useful. So these guys are a step down from Reese and from Bain for me, as those guys have ceilings of being maybe not true like number one all pro edge rushers, but guys that can be double digit sack guys in a season. But Bailey and Falk are kind of that next step down for me.
Peter Woods at number 12. Fair to say, I don't think anybody really thinks that's the next Aaron Donald necessarily. But,
Hmm.
a few months ago, people had him at possible number one. The shine has kind of moved off of him a little bit. is it fair to say, and again, I'm not saying he's identical, but is it fair to say he would fall somewhere in that Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant
Yeah.
type of player, where you expect a certain amount of solid stuff and a fairly high potential ceiling too, and do you like him for most teams who are needing a defensive tackle?
Yeah, that's a great comp in terms of like the value and the level of player getting. And it's funny because for a lot of these guys,
Yeah,
a lot of their comps to last year's draft, we're talking about them 20 picks higher. Like Bailey, if you think about it, like an Ezraku in the second round. Bailey, I'm talking
right.
about as number 14, Falk. Those guys went higher, Michael Williams and Shamar Stewart. But like the wide receivers, we're talking about the corners we just finished talking about on my show. Like we're talking about rounds difference. Peter Woods, I think, fits right there with what those defensive tackles last year were. The thing with Peter Woods is it's going to be really important and really interesting in terms of his ceiling about where he goes and what the fit is. Um, I forget exactly, and maybe the context of you being more of a college football observer will help me with this. It's somewhere in my notes. But there was one year between this year and last year. There's one stretch of games, there's one stretch of time, season, whatever, where he's been a two gapper. He's been a run stopper, he's been a plugger, and he does that fine, right? He's a very good read and react player. He
Yeah,
can hold his ground, has a great anchor, has quick hands, has strong hands, and a strong upper body where he can hold off an offensive line with one arm and snatch that second arm out and grab the running back and make a great play. And that's good and that's valuable and that's first round. That's top half of the first round, especially when you got teams like the Cowboys and the Bengals drafting highly. Those teams should be just taking them and moving on. But if you want to talk about ceiling for Peter Woods, he can also be a one gapper. He has a great first step and he's got enough mass and strength that if he gets that foot in the door of a gap, you're not going to be able to knock him off that path at that point. Now, his finishing, his overall level of athleticism isn't quite there, which is why, even at his best, I wouldn't call him a top five pick. But I'd be more comfortable with like top 10, and even in this draft, like five, six, 8. Taking a guy like that and saying maybe this could be the next double digit sack guy from a defensive tackle position if I put him in a system where he's going to one gap, he's going to penetrate, and I just want him to get after the quarterback. So I think his range of outcomes has a high floor, but I think there's a higher ceiling depending on what you're going to ask him to do.
yeah, agreed. All my questions are going to come from top 16. We're not even going to touch the second half. Okay. Look, I've got so many questions here.
I did just
Real
look at the
quick,
time.
real quick on this top 16. Obviously, you love Jacoby Lane, and
Mhm.
obviously, you have a pecking order here. It's a big board. But let's say you were building a football team and you weren't necessarily worried about filling in all the important positions first, if you will. Um, who's the one guy here that you're like, oh my gosh, I would just be so thrilled if this guy were on my team?
Like, you want me to literally do Steelers 2026? Like, if one of these guys ended up on Steelers 2026, or you just mean if I'm a GM, I'm like, I just want this guy.
Let's start a new team, yeah, and that way we don't have to worry about any positional needs or anything. It's just, oh my gosh, I love this
Uh,
guy. I need this guy.
Probably Fano, especially if
Okay,
I'm a team that kind of needs to rebuild my offensive line, which several of these teams up at the top do, and not just from a like I'm looking for a number one all pro guy because that would be cool, which it would be, but like I need some infusion of nastiness and athleticism and just play
right.
style and a guy that I can just not be worried about. Spencer Fano would be the guy. I love watching him. I feel like you could put him right there at right tackle for any team that needs one right now, and you'd be in good shape.
After this question, whenever you're ready, you can transfer over to the second half of your board. But I do want to ask this question first. Where's your basically first ground grade cutoff here? Like we know every draft is different. You know, some years it's 18 guys, some years it's 25. But for you personally, where did basically your first ground grades stop?
I think it's gonna be funny because it's gonna be right at the Ty Simpson line for me right now. So it's gonna
Okay,
depend on, and I haven't quite done the mental gymnastics on if I'm gonna give him the quarterback boost to call him a first round pick or not. Like in terms of my grade. we did the thing on my show about like what exactly kind of quarterback do you need for your team and coach, right? So I do think there's a world where Simpson is a first round. So it's probably like 22, 23, right in that range. But I'd call these guys here in the top 16 a first round grade.
All right, fair enough. Let's move into the second half of your board here, and here come the cornerbacks. Okay, so at 18, Mansour Delane; at 21, Avion Terrell; at 26, Jermod McCoy; at 30, Colton Hood. Which one of those guys do you want to talk about tonight? Obviously, we don't have time for all four, but which guy would you like to kind of tell the audience a little bit about?
I'll just say that I think Delane is the number one guy in this class. That said, I think Terrell is my favorite guy in this group. But let's spend some time on Jermon McCoy because I think this is the one that people will see and be like, "You have him where?" I
Yeah,
said this a little on my show, Simon and Friends Pod. Ben and I did a breakdown of the DBs for the draft, and Jermon McCoy has a bunch of talent. He has a skill set and a mentality and a play style that I think even just last year I would have been all over and eaten up and putting him in the top 10. But there's a recent history of these more physically based press man corners that are big and strong, and then big and strong first, fast, smooth, and technique driven second and third. There's a history of those guys not having the most consistent careers. You look at Tariq Woolen with Seattle, you look at Martin Emerson with Cleveland, you look at Cam Taylor Britt with Cincinnati, and those guys range in body types. And Cam Taylor Britt, I think, is the perfect example because he plays bigger than he is. McCoy, just like all these corners on the board, is somewhere between 5'11 and 6'1 and 185 and 195 pounds. But he plays like he's bigger. He's a stockier build. He's a press man corner. He's physical. He wants to fight you at the line. Cam Taylor Britt, same thing. Cam Taylor Britt, 6 foot, 195, and even a 4.3 speed, but he's a bigger, stouter guy. But these press man corners that are young and live off of physicality, it's going to be inconsistent because offenses and really good receivers know how to scheme themselves open against them and burn them. And that's what happens to these guys. So that pushed him down for me. I think there's so much talent there. And who knows, maybe had he gotten to play this year, he would have shown something a little different. So that's what you have to figure out if you're able to bring out of him as a coach, as a franchise, because the talent is there and the tools are there. But I pushed him down a little bit because that play style hasn't worked as well the last few years as a smoother guy like a Delane or like a feisty and athletic guy like a Terrell.
it's a great point, and I want to encourage everybody in the audience because here on this network we try to be adults. Okay, we're trying not to be kids here. If you're seeing highlight films and videos of some of these players and they're saying best blank in the draft, right, or best so and so since 2021, or monster this, or listen, we're not sensationalistic over here. We have done the work, so I encourage you before you jump on us too quick for a guy we've got higher or lower than what you think. If you've done the work, that's fine. But if you've heard something somewhere else and you're like, what are you guys talking about? We've done the work. We have the opinions we have. Maybe we're wrong about it, but we have put in the work on these guys and we're not trying to be sensationalistic here. So not only here come the corners, but here come the wide receivers. Concepcion at 19, Kenyon Sadiq, if you will, at 23, Denzel Boston at 27, Antonio Williams, who I know you love, at 29. My question here is, how big is the gap here for you personally between the guys you plugged into the second half of this first round, the pass catching guys,
Hmm.
and the guys you left out? Because it's a fairly deep group of wide receivers this year, but how close are, say, these four to maybe the next four?
Let's see. Antonio Williams is probably closer to the group that's out of this than the group that's in this. Denzel Boston, same thing for me. Um, Sa- Sadiq's a weird one, man, because I see him and I'm like, he's so unique, and it's not just because, ooh, he's a H back type. It's because he's an H back type that blocks. Like he's not a move tight end. He's
Mm-hmm.
an inline. He blocks. He's not great at it, but he does it. But then he also gets open downfield. So I don't know what to do with Sadiq, truly, to be honest with you. Um, So he's probably like right in the middle, but I would probably lean him closer to the top guys, like more in that first round. So that's why he and Ty Simpson are kind of right there on that line of my first round guys.
Okay.
Uh, Casey Concepcion, man, I haven't even done a deep work on him yet. He was in my last 48 hours trying to dig and fill out 32 names that I felt really confident in putting in this board. I have 45, 50, 55 names that I've already done work on, but none that I've felt like I really wanted to put up here. So I get to Concepcion. I'm like, whoo, this man jumps off the film. This is a guy that I will not be surprised if he ends up on my first page of this by the end of the process because you feel him. You feel him. Not the most technically sound, but I think pretty good in that aspect. But man, the speed is there. The route running is there on certain routes. I think there's a lot you could do with him. So I really like him. So I would break it down pretty easily and say if it's a pass catcher on the left side of your screen, I feel like he's a first round guy. If it's a pass catcher on the right side of your screen, I consider him more in the second round, kind of that group.
Let's quickly here hit these last two guys on your board. It's not my last question, but the TJ Parkers, the Cassius Howells, for some people the R. Mason Thomases.
Hmm.
Um, it, as a group, are these mainly quick edgers, or do you feel like they have even more to offer? Where are you at on this kind of cluster of guys that are seemingly fitting this kind of a smaller end edge mold?
I knew you were gonna be mean and make me talk about these edge rushers that I don't know what to do with. So here's the thing, the ones that you mentioned. So Parker and Howell I like because I think they're versatile. I think they're both pretty good at I think they both have a pass rush move that they like. Parker has a good duck and dip move. Howell has a good kind of swipe move to swipe hands away from him. They both have good first steps, but not elite like overall speed. They're both stout, probably both like 245 or so. So they both set the edge a little bit, but they could both also drop back in the flat a little bit. I saw them both do a fair bit of that on tape. R. Mason Thomas is like a step down version of David Bailey. And if you're not going to be really good at that, then I'm gonna knock you down a little bit. And then you've got your like Mateo Uyungleleles and LT Overtons, who are the big stout edge defenders. I call them more edge defenders than edge rushers because they're not the ones truly getting after the quarterback. And I don't know if they have the true athleticism upside of the Falks, right? So like what I think separated Parker and Howell for me from Uyunglele, Overton, or Mason Thomas is Parker and Howell, I think, do their thing. I think they're the best at the kind of players that they are in this group. The short, stout, but versatile kind of guys. Overton, Uyunglele, how many times am I going to say that? And our Mason Thomas are like the step down versions of guys that we've already seen, which is why I think I ultimately went with Parker and Howell above the other three.
I know how difficult it is for you to talk about running backs. It's not your favorite. And yet there's Jeremiah Love sitting there at 17. Tell us a little bit about him. Um, it's still a running back, but it is still a big board, right? So were
Yep.
you tempted to move him higher? Were you tempted to drop him a whole bunch more? Where were you at on Jeremiah Love?
Yeah, I was definitely tempted to move him higher. And if you ask me a different day, like he might get above Jacoby Lane even. He might get into that top 13 for me. And it would this might be a circumstance, a lot of people do their big boards where they're like, hey, this isn't a mock. Like I wouldn't take this guy this high. I might be inclined to do the opposite, where like my big board is like a net neutral. I'm not thinking about roster. So what's the true value of this position and this player combined overall? Love is a very good player. He's a very good running back. He might walk into the NFL as a top 10, 12 running back. But we saw with Ashton Genty, man, who I had at like 4 or 5 on my big board last year, right? I'm not incapable. Bijan Robinson, same thing. I didn't have a full big board that year, but I remember saying doing a mock draft with you and whether it was Ronan or Robertson, whoever it was, I said if Bijan Robinson was going to go in the first round, I would want him to go to Atlanta, and I think he went 7, right? I think that's where he went to Atlanta, and I thought that was perfect. If Love if you show me a team with an offensive line and some semblance of a pass game structure, doesn't even need to be talent, but a structure of one with a good offensive line, and that team happens to be drafting 8, yeah, take Jeremiah Love there. If you've got a team even at 14 and they're devoid of offensive talent, including on the offensive line. You're like, let's get Jeremiah Love and infuse this offense with a little juice. That's a huge mistake, right? So it's not. I think I'm a little flipped on how my board versus my mocks go. I would probably take Love it, although we did a mock recently and we Love Bear, definitely went past 17. So Love is a really good player, really good overall running back. He's got good bursts. He's got good. He can sustain his speed for a long time. He's got a second, third gear. He can break tackles at the line of scrimmage. He can create behind the line of scrimmage for himself. He's a willing pass blocker. He's not that great at it, but he's willing, and he's a good pass catcher. So like he's got everything. He doesn't have that same home run, high ceiling stuff that we saw from Genty last year. I don't even know if he has the same degree as Omarion Hampton from last year. But I think I like Love's all around game slightly more than I think I ended up having Hampton at like 28, 29 on my board last year. It was also a better draft. So maybe I feel like he's just about the same as a Hampton or even a um who's the Ohio State back? Not Judkins, who's the one in New England, whoever that is. Um
Henderson, yeah.
Henderson, I really liked Henderson. Maybe I think they're like about the same, right? So end of the first round, but in a draft like this, he gets bumped up a bit.
My final specific question before I get your wrap up thoughts here. How cool is it to be talking linebackers in the first round, man? I mean, Arvell Reese, you got him way up there at 2 or 3, I forget. You got Sonny Styles way up there. We've got C.J. Allen. We've got Anthony Hill. Uh, Obviously, people will be a little different on each of these four guys, but how cool is it to have four guys up here who are linebackers, man? Like, they're not edgers per se, although they may scoot the edge. They're legit linebackers out in space.
Just wipe the tears from my eyes. It's a beautiful thing, Ben. It's a beautiful thing. We missed the linebacker. We missed the linebacker that comes out of the draft, and they don't have to be converted to edge rusher to be taken in the first round. And we might get three
Right.
of those guys. Reese might end up getting flipped to edge rusher, but yeah, I mean, there are people that think you could take them top five and just stick them at off ball linebacker and have the next Fred Warner. Like
Right.
it is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I think it also speaks to why Caleb Downs is so coveted in this draft because we're seeing the need for defending the middle of the field in a pass and run way. And you need guys that can do both of those things. Now that the middle of the field is the hot button thing to do on offense from a pass perspective, now that the run game is important again, now that's not just the Shanahan 2010s outside zone stuff. People are running gap, people are running power, people are running up the middle. You got to be able to defend that in all aspects. It's funny, these linebackers this year that were drafted in the last 5 years, that were drafted for the old way of playing, are out here, have like 2 years ago, we thought they weren't Devin Lloyd. Like, was Devin Lloyd going to be on a team after Jacksonville? Was Jerome Baker going to be on a team? And now those guys are like all pro, Pro Bowl, like all, borderline getting contract extensions, all this stuff. And we're like, oh yeah, we still need those guys. So I love it. Allen, I mean, talk about Georgia linebackers, right? Nakobe Dean's having a breakout season. So Quay Walker has developed into something. So even if it takes a little bit of time now, maybe we treat it a little bit more like tight end, where like tight end, they have to learn to receive and block at an NFL level. Linebackers have to learn to defend the run and defend the pass and be the green dot wearer in a lot of aspects. At an NFL level, maybe it takes a little bit of time, but we see the value once they're fully matured. So I absolutely love it. It's beautiful and Sunny Styles, man. I mean, talk about Fred Warner, converted safety, 6'4", fast, linebacker learns to hit. Big trouble, people. Big trouble.
It's late, so I'm not going to go on my linebacker tangent, but I am thrilled to see it. It's something that I thought needed to happen a long time ago. Your final thoughts here on this big board that you put together? Any specific player you want to talk about? Anybody that was hard to leave off? Anybody that was hard to put in, or just your general feeling on this this year's kind of first round group?
Um, I think just some stuff that we hinted at, especially at corner, but especially defensive line, like defensive tackles. I like Caden McDonald, so I'm glad I was able to get to him and get him here in my top 30. I'm pretty confident in him being there. But last year's defensive tackle group was so strong to the point that we had second and third rounders go that I really, really liked. And man, the guys like Amari Washington, Christian Miller, I was excited to watch, and I was like, yeah, it's fine, right? So they're off my board, so they're right, they're in the 20s for a lot of people, so I don't think I'd have them that far off overall. but I think there are going to be guys that grade similar across positions to guys that were taken on day two last year that are going to be talked about in the first round. And it is what this draft is going to be. And we can complain about it for 4 months, or we can just say, hey, good player. Take him when he has to be taken. And that's what we'll do.
Yeah, I'm going to try my best not to be one of these, I don't know, intelligentsia who want to kind of, stick my nose up at this draft. I really like these players. Having said that, talent scale tends downward from top all the way through. But man, we're all going to take our picks. We're all going to draft some players, and I love a lot of these guys. So
Yep.
it's going to be a really fun draft season. So Simon, I've enjoyed it, man. It's an excellent big board. It has a lot of things that other people have, and then several things that other people don't have. So um, we will obviously keep fine tuning this. The more we study, the more information we get. Sometimes about injuries, sometimes about maybe little things that come out about a guy that we just didn't know about before. It may sway some of these things, and sometimes the guys on the fringe, and we don't always value all of the combine stuff for every guy as far as moving them up and down. But if there's a guy that's sitting on the fringe of a group for us, comes in with a number we do or don't like, that could flip him to the bottom of the top of a tier for us. So we'll keep fine tuning this. Simon, thank you very much, man. I really enjoyed it tonight.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. This is the Box Score Network. I'm Ben Parker. That's Simon Shortt. Thank you all. We obviously have a lot of draft things on here, and we'll keep putting it out until the draft itself comes out. And even after that, you can keep checking out prospect reports. There's videotape on different prospects. There's groupings of these prospects. We have it all the way across the board. So thank you. Have a great one. Goodbye.